Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. I am Jeff Sharon. No Eric Lopez with us today. He's nursing some health issues, but in his stead, we have a full house here. We have Bryson Turner. We have Stat Voyager himself, the Leroy Jenkins of UCF Twitter Mafia, Andrew Goodpop, and of course the student of the game, Colin Nash, with us here. Aboard on this Media Day Thursday. We're recording this Thursday, August the 4th. And we, Bryson and myself and Noah were at UCF Media Day earlier today, which is kind of the I guess we could say like the real start of the season, right, guys? I mean, this is it. We are off and running now.
Yeah, the Pats came on day 3 of practice, and then Bryson was there to handle the business at the media day. Man.
Yeah, from a fan perspective, I would say this is definitely where the season really feels like it begins. And then you have the pads on for the players, which, according to Coach T. Will, is really where you get to learn a lot of stuff about your team. So I'm telling you what, I'm excited, and I think everyone else is excited. So, yeah. Practice
started on Monday, and so a couple things that we have to come out with already. All right, number one, we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be just yet, so don't ask us. But we will hear from both of those quarterbacks in the running for the starting job, John Rhys, Plumlee, and Mikey Keene. We will hear from Gus Malzahn as well. We don't know when the uniforms are coming out. All I've been hearing is the same thing you've been hearing. Soon. How soon, I don't know. Hopefully got to be pretty soon.
Soon enough that it's a meme to the UCF Knights Twitter account.
well, yeah.
We'll find out September 1st.
We'll find it. Well, we'll definitely find out by then, obviously. But we're going to be ramping up too. So, obviously we're talking about Football Media Day today. It's a relatively short show, not too much to talk about. But next week we will have our first fall sports preview. Tiffany Roberts-Sahadak will join us, head coach of UCF Women's Soccer, to talk about her team. But let's dive in with UCF Football Media Day today in the Nicholson Fieldhouse. We got to hear from Coach Gus. We got to hear from a bunch of players. Bryson was in mid-season form, I should say, getting as much sound from as many different people as he possibly could. We also heard from some of the assistant coaches. It's okay. So my sense, Bryson, I'll start with you since, you were there. I was there with you. Noah was there too. There's not really too much we can glean from Media Day, except it's nice to kind of rub elbows and see everybody today. But did you gain any particular insight from you being there today at Media Day?
A little bit. So one of the things that we can glean from Media Day is who exactly is there. Because, obviously the bigger role that a person have, the more media attention they'll have, and that's the person that they'll want to put forth. And who else did they put forth on Media Day but Javon Baker, which is the wide receiver we've heard so much about from the limited press conferences we have had since practice began, and who is the subject of that Twitter video where he caught a ball over a defensive back's head. So
you mean the one that certain people on Twitter have been over analyzing with regard to insight regarding the quarterback situation?
It happened anyway.
We'll get to the
I know.
But
a lot of those Twitter coordinators out there breaking down the film.
Yeah, leave that to Grant Hurd, who I also talked to. So Javon Baker, the fact that he was sent out for media day, I think is a little bit of an indication that I think that they might be planning a big role for him. I mean, obviously he comes to us from Alabama. If you catch Nick Saban's attention, then you gotta be good. So I think that that's certainly a very intriguing. I also got to talk to Tremont Morris Brash, who also got some name drops at the press conference as well, and he got to talk to him. Other than that, I think that everyone also talked about how it's really important that everybody buys in. And I know that we hear about that from everybody. It's basically coach and players speak now at this point. So, but the thing is, and Gus sort of mentioned this as well, and I think Chip Lindsey might have mentioned it a little bit, if I remember correctly, but that a team buying in is much more important than it is in today's game because of the new changes that are coming about that are more player centric. Because when you're a college athlete now, you have all sorts of different things that you can use to benefit yourself with NIL especially. Obviously it's still a team sport. And so the team that gels together the best can end up having a pretty big competitive advantage, or at least can be a competitive advantage, I think, because you're able to gel together as a unit. And so I think that the fact that these players and coaches have been pairing this over and over and over really shows that this is a really big focus for them.
Kyle and Drew, and I want to go to Kyle first on this. Or excuse me, Drew first on this. I'm sorry, nothing against you, Kyle. We've heard that time and time again, right? You know, it's all about buying. But I really, I mean, to me, that's exactly what it should be, right? And that's why I've said before, you know, I kind of like the portal because it means that you're going to have, I'd rather have 85 guys who completely buy in and are not playing out the string. But my question to you is, I guess, how much do you think that just kind of happens organically? And how much do you think that how the end of last season played out with the win over Florida, how much does that factor into, you know, what the coaches were telling Bryson today?
Well, I mean, you can probably put a lot of, you could probably put some into the fact that they ended the season on a high note. I actually don't think it really matters all that much as far as the team gelling. That happened throughout the entire season. You know, one game a season does not make. Just the fact that they went through the trials that they went through builds that camaraderie to begin with. And when you bring in pieces from the portal and new freshmen coming in, you've already have this bubble of camaraderie created, and you're just adding pieces to it. So you don't have to make a wholesale change like you did going into the 2021 season, where you have an old team with a fractured mentality and you have to build it back up. Now you have a new foundation, and you can add pieces to it without having to change the foundation that you've developed.
What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, no, Drew, and I like a lot of what you said there too. Listen, when it comes to the Gasparilla Bowl, the part where that mattered the most has already passed. It was something that was a bit of, excuse me, how you say, a fuel that Gus could pour onto his hair to recruit like it was on fire, just as he promised to do last year. He did it all over again and in spades with all the recent prospects he's brought in. But I would even add to this too. You know, what I asked Gus after the first day of practice was how much more different, how much more comfortable, how much more excited he was. And frankly, his response was because of not only not having to catch up the way he did, and literally him and all the other coaches, but the new rules regarding coaches being on the field and having practices with them in OTAs in the summer and all that. He said something along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the precise quote. It's been a bit now, but he says that he feels like they should be light years ahead, and he feels that they are. So that's where that stuff kind of comes into play. Not so much with the Gasparilla Bowl, but certain other things like the recruiting was where that really came into play. To hear Gus talk about it, and I think he talked about that a bit in the spring. I might have been the person who asked about that. I don't remember, but yeah, it's more about how much more comfortable literally everybody is. T. Will echoed it the second day after practice too. So I really feel like that's where all that comes into play.
I think that Well, I'm going to hear from Gus from Media Day first here real quick, because he talks about a little bit about, the real potential that this team has. And really, he kind of echoed what he said. I thought some of the things that he said actually in his introductory press conference now a year and a half ago. But let's go ahead and play that soundbite from earlier today in Media Day.
Yeah, UCF football, I really feel like we're one of the programs on the rise. We talk about seize the moment. That's part of it. We got to seize the moment on the field. And everything is set up in place in this program. I mean, we've got a program that's won and won big before. We're in Orlando, which the best brands in the world are here. This is one of the best places to live in the world right now, too. And the NIL and everything that goes with that, everything is set up. We just got to win. We got to win on the field. Our guys understand that. As far as the program's concerned, you see the way we're recruiting, it's going to get nothing but better if we can take care of our business on the field. So that's why we're saying seize the moment. And the great thing is, like we talked about, our seniors understand that. And so that's our challenge.
So that's Coach Gus Malzahn at UCF Media Day earlier today on Thursday, August the 4th. It's easy to say, like, okay, right, like coach speak, right? But the thing that I kind of took away from that and some of the other things he was saying was, man, it feels like he's been here longer than one football season, doesn't it?
So. Yeah,
he's like really settled in, and I think that's part and parcel of like we were talking about earlier, with like the buy-in from the players. He set up the staff exactly how he's wanted, and there has been some turnover, but he's fine with that. I think that that's something that Gus, like the teacher in him, is cool with.
He takes pride in it, I would say, yeah. Jeff. I mean, part of the reason why he knows having such a young staff, they're looking for the next job. I'm sure Gus, for example, has plotted out the day T. Will gets his head coaching gig, if he's not intended to be the heir apparent, right? Yeah,
that's true. Bryson, I think the big question that was coming, that obviously comes into not just camp, but Media Day, that we didn't really get too many answers on, is the quarterback situation, right? It's, of all the things, like that's going to be the big thing, right? And John Rhys Plumlee, Mikey, Keene, they both have they both have things going for each of them. They both have other things that work against each of them. We got to hear from both. By the way, did you see the photo op?
Oh,
yes,
so awkward.
It was such a. It was. I got to give them both credit, because it was a campaign photo, man. It's
Step Brothers.
Plumlee Keene 22. I mean, you just like put the sign out in front of your yard right now. Like, and my thought, I wanted to make a joke about it to some of the folks on Twitter about look at John Rhys Plumlee. He kind of looks like the president. I almost thought he would give somebody like a thumbs up or something. And Mikey, by the way, Mikey has matured a lot. You can tell. But like, Mikey's, I think, 19 years old. John Rhys is 22. Okay. Mikey's hair's he likes to wear his hair kind of scraggly. He kind of looks like the vice president who's the attack dog on the campaign trail. He's kind of like, yeah, I'm a big part of the team here, but Lord knows you do not want me to step into the big office right now. No, I'm just kidding. But whoever gets it, but it's fine. But like he kind of has that attack dog in him, which I also dig. But but again, here we go with quarterback overanalyzation school. But Bryson, we heard from the two of them. What if anything, were we able to pull from either of those guys about how the competition is going?
Well, you talk about how you wanted to make a joke about the whole like campaign poster of this is. I'll tell you what the real joke is. The real joke is what you won't see, which is me trying to turn my tripod so that way I can get my phone in the right position to get the photo up there. That, my friend, is
I managed to get it and I shared it. I was like, I wish I know. I wish I told you. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh man. Yeah, you need to send me that later. But okay, so one thing that I think was very interesting is when we were talking to Mikey Keene, and you can watch this in the full video, which is up in the 2022 UCF Football Media Day playlist that we have on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel, that Mikey mentioned that he was trying to improve his ability with his legs and how he's has the ability to scramble in order to extend a play. And I asked him, did John Rhys influence you to improve on that? Because that's something that John Rhys can do pretty well that he hasn't really shown. And he says that he did it. He says that he didn't. But obviously that is something that a lot of quarterbacks in today's game would probably want. But still, it's like you could say that, but you can't deny that John Rhys having that skill with his legs is a bit of a leg up for him. And
no pun intended.
So I think that is something that is definitely worthy to consider. And so I think really the big deal is John Rhys a just as good or better passer than Mikey Keene is? And that, I think, is going to be the big question that we get. And people ask John Rhys, about, hey, you had a really good spring game where you threw for 4 touchdowns. How do you translate that over? So I think that some of the biggest thing, though, that we got from both of them is that it's a healthy competition. And that is very important. In fact, we have a soundbite from John Rhys Plumlee kind of talking about about the competition and how it is for him and Mikey.
Let's go ahead and play. This is John Rhys Plumlee from Media Day earlier today.
I think the biggest thing in a quarterback battle is it's all about competition, right? And I think competition brings out the best in people. It makes you want to work harder, makes you want to stay up late and study more, wake up earlier and go harder at it. And so, having done it before, I guess it's an experience to say that I've done it, you know what I mean? But I think the biggest piece of it is the competition point of it, and which I love. I've always been a competitor since I've been a little kid. I remember when I would lose to my dad in Madden when I was a kid, I would start crying just because I was so competitive. But I love competition, and so being in a quarterback battle is fun. I don't really know how to compare it to something because you're with a guy almost 24/7, especially during fall camp, you know what I mean? And so you're doing everything together. Then when you have a class together, on top of that, you're doing a lot of stuff together. I mean, it's like I guess it would be like playing your friend a video game. Like when you lose, you're pissed, but when you win, you're happy. But at the end of the day, it's still your happy.
That was John Rhys Plumlee talking about the quarterback competition earlier today. We also heard from Mikey Keene talking about the quarterback competition. A little bit less specific than John Rhys, more talking about competition in general. Here's Mikey Keene.
It's a great relationship that we both have with each other. Quarterback competitions are always necessary. There's always going to be competition regardless of the position. There's competition going on in every position room on our team, which is how it should be. Everyone needs to compete and make each other better. We have to iron sharpens iron, and that works within our own groups as well. So the best guy is going to play, and whoever gives his team the best chance to win is going to be the guy.
Well, there's Mikey Keene, one of the two combatants for UCF, the starting quarterback job, between him and who we heard earlier, John Rhys Plumlee. So, did we hear anything, Bryson, about what the timetable was for a decision, or because Gus is keeping this pretty close to the vest, isn't he?
The quarterbacks themselves didn't really say anything. Gus is saying that he wants to name one sooner rather than later because he said something about wanting to get the timing down.
We should have odds up as to what do we hear about first, the starting quarterback job or the new uniforms.
Oh, that would be fun.
At this point, I think it's going to be the quarterback. I'll be honest.
I will say this. What's really
they should have the starter reveal the new uniforms. How about that?
I would say this. Of those two sound bites, I particularly liked John Rhys Plumlee and how he sort of compared it to playing your friend in a video game. He's had 2 video game comparisons in that, or idioms in that soundbite, and or metaphors, whatever it is. And I literally liked how he really worked that together, because it really shows how much of a competitor he is, but it also shows, how competitive you can be with your friends. And I think above anything, I do think that Mikey, Keene, and John Rhys Plumlee are good friends, to the point that they study together. They're in finance class together, and they were studying at Alex Ward's house for a test. So I think that it speaks to Mikey's point where, healthy competition is good for this team. And the fact that these two are clearly having a healthy competition, I think, is a good sign, because these two are pushing each other to do their best. This is exactly how we got Dylan Gabriel in 2019 when competing with Everett Golson.
Kyle, I think we learned a little something, though, from what Bryson was saying, and and Mikey Keene talking about I'm working a little bit more on my legs and trying to be a little bit more mobile. Do you think that gives John Rhys Plumlee, like we said, no pun intended, student of the game approved pun here, a leg up in the competition?
Yes. First of all, stop stealing from Bryson. And second,
I gave credit where appropriate.
You did. I'm just talking.
It's going to be the competition of the dad jokes again, isn't it?
Why are you griping? You participate regularly, stat boy. Anyway.
Oh, I've got nothing compared to you two.
He says that now. Anyways, no, but listen, here's for all this talk of competition and you and I making light or not of Jeff's very obvious John Rhys fanhood. The whole concept really, what any of this means is just who's going to take snaps first. If Coach Gus has a history of bringing out Gatewood as a change of pace back, all we know right now today, gentlemen, is that they're going to be 2 quarterback system here. It's a matter of how much rotation you get between the two. That's what we know.
I get worried, though, because what's the old cliche? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you really don't have any.
I hate 2 quarterback systems.
Tell Chris Leak and Tim Tebow that.
That's on everything you say is valid in other situations, but there are situations where that's altered. As a 49er fan, I can tell you, in a world where Montana and Young are on the same bench, that theory doesn't hold. And oh, by the way, I got you, babe. Steve Bono up in that beast as number 3 was amazing too. The punchline is this, guys. There are exceptions to rules. And listen, this isn't like the Miami Dolphins having either Ryan Tannehill or David Garrard or Matt Moore. That's not the same. Okay. What this is, I see you smirking too, Jeff. You know exactly what I mean. But the reason why, going back to your original question, I don't look too much into the can he run aspect is twofold. People said the same thing of Dylan Gabriel, and boy, by the time, that short season for him was done, there were comparisons to him and Cam Newton. So that was good. I think a lot of it too is we've just not really had Keene isn't that guy, wasn't that guy, and shouldn't be that guy in a situation where the starter's already out to injury and your third still needs a lot of work. Quadri Jones was never field worthy as a quarterback. I said it. And if that's the number 3, you're not going to run your number 2 regularly like that. That being said, him saying he's working on it or not, whatever, him saying he's working on it, I believe, simply because it fits Gus's system better. Now, he can claim it's not because of John Rhys all he wants to, but the natural competitor in any athlete in that situation is going to want to do that. Heck, me in my situation where I was an O lineman, I moved better than the rest of the O linemen, and others were just power guys, and they participated a little bit more in conditioning drills to keep up with me, even though they were already ahead of me. So I say all of that to say I don't look into that much of it. There's other things that give John Rhys advantage without that statement. Go ahead there, Bryson.
I will give you something with because you mentioned the two quarterbacks and how there's exception to the rule, because there was one reason why Joey Gatewood coming into the game sometimes or Parker Navarro didn't work. And that is because you knew they were going to run. He always ran.
That's my thought too.
Couldn't hit the side of a barn.
Right. The thing is that Plumlee can actually throw the ball.
Right.
And so you don't have to, you don't have to, switch between them all the time. And so the point is that the team doesn't really know what you're going to do. Sure, John Rhys Plumlee might run the ball a little more than Mikey Keene probably would, but he can throw as well. So that means you can't just set your defense, be like, okay, John Rhys Plumlee is in. Get ready because they're going to run the ball, because you can't do that because he can pass the ball. And I think that kind of helps keep a defense on its toes.
And
there are two ways.
Back on Keene, he would run in and fool them too. Go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
There are two ways to run a two quarterback system. The problem is the way that it was being run, it really doesn't work, right? Because you kill any momentum you develop. You basically, if you're doing a two quarterback system, you have to go really by series or by quarters or something a little more structured.
Spurrier went play by play one time. That didn't. Well, actually, it did work. He beat Florida State that one time, but that's another thing entirely.
Yeah, I mean, you don't
one time. That says everything.
That one time, yeah.
I mean, I have to go way back in my childhood to remember the last time you saw a working series by series two quarterback system, and that was Ohio State in the 90s with Joe Germain and Stanley Jackson. I mean, you don't see it very often because it largely doesn't work. You kill momentum when you take guys out. And you know what you're getting with each player. So it's not like you're really surprising the defense when you come out with a different quarterback. So it almost becomes self-defeating. You do it when you have a quarterback who can't throw, and you need that curveball, but then you have to find ways to maybe get both guys on the field and have a little bit of misdirection there. Just switching off back and forth. I mean, in my opinion, it actually hurts more than it helps.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll find out in due time. In the meantime, guys, we have plenty of content for Media Day for you to digest, UCF fans. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can find that out, so you can make sure you check out our YouTube link as well. Bryson, you were going to add something too?
Yes, I just wanted to say we have a playlist now of 19 videos. I'm currently uploading the last one right now to make it number 19 with Gus Malzahn.
Bryson Turner, the heart here.
Yes,
dropping 19 bites from Media Day on us, man. Wow.
You actually glitched out a little bit there, Jeff, unfortunately. But yes, so basically, just to kind of give you a preview, we obviously had the people where all the media was there for Plumlee, Keene, Gus, Alex Ward was there, and then on various other smaller tables around, we have Coach T. Will, Travis Williams, Ryan O'Keefe, Kamor Gamble, Javon Baker, Brian Blackman, the special teams coordinator and tight end coach, Quadric Buller, Ricky Barbaro, Lokahi Paole, Matt Lee, Sam Jackson, and a few more. So there is plenty of Media Day content for you guys there to get a chance to see what these players and coaches have to say. And it was really awesome to get the chance to speak with some of them, because we don't normally get to talk with some of these guys, especially with the position coaches, that often. So I think it was really cool. Brian Blackman, I will say, was actually very enlightening, because he talked about how, because you guys remember last year how Alec Holler really became a dominant receiving tight end for the team. And then so I was thinking to myself, like, okay, so how does Kamor Gamble factor into this? Because will there be a tight end battle? And he was more, and he mentioned how it's more like a 1-2 punch with them, and that there could be two tight end sets. He mentioned how we don't have starters, we have standards. I think that's a really cool mantra to kind of have. And we also talk about how coaches talk about how you really want depth. This team was ravaged by injuries so much last season that I think having depth is just the biggest thing for you guys right now, because one of the big things that, some of the bigger teams have, and my dad, who's a big SEC fan, by the way, talks about this all the time, is that Alabama's second team can still go and beat like Old Dominion or something like that. So
Alabama's second team could probably beat Auburn.
Right. So the point is that good depth is important, and that's what this team is trying to build. And so having something where Holler and Gamble could switch out or be in the same play together, there's so much opportunity here, especially when we talk about the deep wide receiver room that Ryan O'Keefe has been talking about, and that Grant Hurd talked about as well. So I think the biggest thing is there's so much possibility with this team that maybe we didn't have last year because of injury that really excites me, and that you kind of see all throughout these videos. So I'm excited.
Kyle and Drew, as we wrap up this first segment here, that's something that Gus knows just as well as anybody else, right? It's you got to have that depth when you're heading into the Big 12, and he's worked to really build that this year, and based on what we kind of riffed on a little bit about the recruiting for 2023, that's a big emphasis now.
Oh yeah. Well, and just where Bryson went with the tight ends alone, like you haven't seen that kind of depth at the tight end position since 2017, where you had Aiden Franks and Kalubiali. Right now, they actually have a few guys. I mean, I think they expected more from those before Holly and didn't necessarily get it because reasons. Maybe it was the play calling, maybe it was the player, maybe it was both. I don't know, but there's a lot of depth there. Talking to Sam Jackson after the first day of practice, he mentioned that even though Marcus Tatum and Cole Schneider are gone, that this group is bigger than it's been, which tells me a better shot to battle Cincinnati and those meaner guys in the conference in the trenches, where previously guards would be put on their back, as has happened in the past. There's a lot of that good stuff and the kind of stuff you want to see heading into the Big 12. I mean, Drew, you can't get bodied like that at the next level if you're in the trenches, for sure.
Well, especially when you're playing against a Midwestern, Great Plains league, you need some corn-fed beef,
right?
Size, and while you sometimes lack that in the Southeast, you find it elsewhere. And the transfer portal is really helping out with that. It's filling in some gaps. Ryan Swoboda, who is an absolute behemoth, the guy 6'10", I think he is. I mean, he's absolutely gigantic, and you need that, especially in the short term. With the portal the way it is, it used to be if you're going through transfers, it's all about just fixing gaps, but now you're getting freshmen who are transferring, and you're basically able to hit the reset button on them and start them essentially almost over, where you got 3 to 4 years of eligibility. So it's a totally different recruiting monster using the transfer portal compared to how it was in yesteryears. And add to the fact that UCF is using that affiliation before they even step on the field in a Big 12 conference game with what's looking to be the best high school recruiting class they've ever had. Now we'll see how well it holds till December, but I mean, there's been more buzz in this incoming freshman class than there's ever been. And you have to be excited, and there's correlation here. It's not that they're just keeping players in the Central Florida area. It's the fact that they now have a power conference designation to go with it to make them that attractive. It's not, if they were still in the American, they would not be having this 2023 class coming together the way it is.
Not just the American, but Gus at coach, the recent, I think there's a lot of factors. That's the biggest one. You're right. But there's just a lot of things going right now on the recruiting.
Oh yeah. It's a complete package. But I mean, if you switch that one thing, you wouldn't have the same set of results. You really wouldn't. And unfortunately, it's a bias you can't get around.
Yeah, you might still have the highest recruiting class in UCF history, but it wouldn't be this high. I'm with you, buddy.
Well,
right.
Gus said this though, that Jeff has mentioned how they're not here until they signed on the dotted line, which so they can still change their decisions at any time. And I think that Gus mentioned how they are set up very well, but they have to succeed on the field for it to stick. And I think that's what people really need to realize here, is that this is a year that I think where this is the year for UCF's future. You know, we're about to go to the Big 12. We're about to make this big move. We have these people that are like, all right, we want to come here. So it's like, we have the ball. The ball is in our court. Let's make the most of it. Let's seize the moment. That's why Gus has been parroting that phrase all this time.
Now you young whippersnapper weren't around in 2012.
I was just going to say.
In 2012, the slogan on all the football shirts was finish. It's about ending one chapter, bookending it with something successful, moving on to the next one. In fact, UCF kind of bookend Conference USA, winning division titles in both years, losing to Tulsa both years in the conference championship.
Yeah, losing in overtime in the conference championship.
Well, they didn't lose in overtime in 2005, but
that's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. They were good until halftime, and then they got torched. But
in 2012 they lost in overtime.
Right.
Went to the Beef O'Brady / St. Petersburg / now Gasparilla Bowl.
And it was
State.
It was the Blake Bortles coming out party. It was a foreshadowing of things to come. And
10-win season.
Yeah. And the thing was, you know, that parlayed into a very successful 2013 campaign. You've got to finish strong. And that's what it comes down to. You want to create momentum. You want to create excitement. And yeah, you know, obviously it doesn't matter until you sign the dotted line in December or February, whichever recruiting signing day you're doing. But you also want to use the chance for the recruits that have committed to try and get others to join in. And players talk, and we've seen it. You know, it makes a difference. So you want to create. You got these guys who have committed. You don't sit on your laurels. You maintain the relationships with them. You encourage them. They spread the good word. You put a product on the field that people can be. You know, that players want to be a part of, and you let it grow organically at that point. And you know, if you can, you know, remember, signing day is before the bowl game. The bowl game generally doesn't matter in that because you're going to get 90% of your class by the December signing period. So if you can get a successful season, maybe get to the conference championship game, finish third, or even better, or well, if you can win it all. But if you don't, I mean, if even a third place finish, I think will end up doing really well for UCF.
Yeah, you see before the bowl game, depending on the bowl in question, Drew, some of the earlier bowls, it might file on signing day. That's its own ball of wax there, too.
Yeah. Or you never know. Just win the conference outright, because remember, this is the last time that UCF will have an opportunity, at least as far as we know, under the current format, to play a conference championship game at home.
Yeah, going forward, it's going to be in Jerry World in Arlington, Texas.
Through 2025, I think, right? Is that the latest?
I think so. Or I thought they renewed it.
They did. I think it was through 20. Anyway.
Maybe that was the renewal.
Yeah, we'll double check.
Here's what I know. Now I have to try to explain to my wife about a yearly trip to Texas out of nowhere.
Hey, I'm more than happy to take the dive. My sister-in-law lives in Plano, Texas, outside of the Dallas Metroplex. I'm willing to take that dive.
All due respect, Drew, I already did that for you for the Peach Bowl, and I'm still regretting that trash. So no.
My brother does not live in Atlanta anymore, but the best man at my wedding did.
I can't hear you over the fact that it's still not going to happen. No, I'm kidding.
Positive momentum is the key. I think no matter what last season showed us is this team is a team that can overcome things that have thrown its way. So now it's all about just positive momentum, and I think that will keep recruits coming here.
Right, and it was reported the latest on the Big 12 championship game is that it is at Jerry World through at least 2025. So. You won't have to wait that long for us to get back, because when we do, we got a couple other things that we will sort out as well, including the upcoming UCF schedule. We have a few years already knocked out, so Drew will have an update for you on that. And also some financials that UCF released this year that we can talk about in depth. So we got lots to talk about still here on the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon here with you, hosting along with Bryson Turner, Andrew Glukov, and the student of the game, Kyle Nash. So earlier today we had Media Day. Remember, you can check out all the latest from Media Day on our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, look for Black and Gold Banneret. You can find us there. All the latest press conferences as well, not just from today, Media Day, but from throughout UCF's throughout the season. We will have that on there for you as well. And by the way, huge thanks to both you, Bryson, and you, Kyle, for busting your tails to make sure that we get that stuff up there. It's huge. It's huge, man. And you guys are on the ground making things happen. All right, speaking of making things happen on the ground, let's talk about earlier today. Earlier this week, UCF released a little fiscal year update. Record-setting, revenue-generating year, they say, Andrew Glukov. Let's go ahead over some of the bullet points. Of course, the year ended June 30th. The Charge On Fund, the fundraising arm for UCF Athletics, raised a record $43.8 million in commitments and got $20.2 million in cash. So $20 million actually in the bank, $43 million in future commitments in total. Record number of donors to the Charge On Fund, 11,804. The Shareholders Society, which is the major gift program, grew by 51%. That's donors with a commitment of $25,000 or more for over a period of up to 5 years. UCF got, of course, the naming rights agreement, $19.5 million over 10 years from FBC Mortgage for the football stadium. Doubled its number of corporate partners. $125 million multimedia rights deal with Playfly Sports. That's sort of the marketing arm that they're looking at, kind of like what IMG used to do for UCF, mostly with radio signage, things like that. That doesn't have to do with TV. Licensing revenue was up, and we are now less than 900 football season tickets away from a sellout for UCF football for this year, as the Knights head into their final year in the American. So, Drew, the big thing, the fundraising ramping up in an effort to be commensurate with other institutions in the Big 12. But I think people lose sight of how important this part of it really is.
Oh yeah, well, the fundraising aspect is always a huge part of the overall operations, and I'm surprised they actually left off the signing of the Tower Club with 3MG Solutions, who does who's already a partner. I was expecting to see that there, and I don't recall seeing it. That actually comes out to $1.75 million over 5 years, if you fully average it out. So, I mean, that's another extra chunk of change that really should have been included in this because it was signed within the fiscal year. There's a few things in play here. One, people want to be involved because of the move to the Big 12. One thing I've learned from my work in with youth organizations and others and community service projects is when you're doing fundraising, if you give a specific goal in mind, people will be willing to give you money. And Terry Mohajir was pretty upfront about why they're raising money. It's just not, we're just raising money. It's specifically with a goal in mind, in reference to, trying to get towards what the Big 12 operating budgets are. And so people are feeding off that.
Interesting contrast, by the way, compared to what Houston did, because they announced that $150 million fundraising campaign, which will be used to improve athletics facilities and whatnot. They just announced that one huge block, right? That one huge sort of block goal, where UCF's approach to it, Drew, has been a little bit more, I don't want to say piecemeal, that doesn't sound like the right term, but a little bit more...
It's segmented.
Yeah, a little bit more compartmentalized.
They're trying to eat the elephant one bite at a time, Jeff.
Yeah.
When you make the goal $150 million, that sounds very unattainable. It doesn't seem realistic. So look what they did with their athletic plan. They broke it up into pieces. And it was smart because you can do this here with these couple parts here and then over here, and do it in phases. It extends your timetable, really. As we know about basic problem solving that we've learned in school, take a big problem, turn it into multiple small problems. This is no different. It's taking obviously $150 million is actually kind of what UCF's facility plans kind of equal. I think it was like 155, give or take, when you look at the whole package. Instead of just focusing squarely on that, this is the goal actually isn't the capital campaign. Now that's a secondary part of it, but the overall goal here was about operating budget, about being able to keep up with the Joneses of the Big 12. Because remember, UCF for the first 2 years is going to be a half share member. They're going to get between $18 to $20 million per year through their payout, which obviously is a huge jump over the around 7 to 8 that they're going to get if they stayed with the Americans. So you're already getting a huge jump there. But
do we know that for sure, by the way? I just want to double check. Okay.
Mohajer did say, he was quoted, I think he said 18 one year, 19 the next. So it's going to be somewhere in between the 18 to 20 range. It really depends how the overall payouts work with a variety of different variable payouts, but I think it's going to be relatively in that range. I don't think they're going to really give them much in the realm of NCAA units or whatnot during those first couple of years. Now, 2025, they're going to become a full share member on the
That's
new
also when
contract.
the new TV contract would take place.
I have no idea where it's going to go at this point. All I know is it's going to be better than what UCF has ever had before. So they will be thrilled. I can't speak for the remaining 8 and how they'll feel. And we don't even know what the conference makeup is going to be come 2025.
Yeah, that's true. We may not be done. We may not be done yet right now. I guess, Kyle, when you look at that, what does it really mean in terms of, I mean, obviously there's the flashy renderings and everything, right? But what does it really mean in terms of brass tacks, what that money really goes to? Because it's scholarships, it's equipment, it's things like, it's stuff to make UCF better at whatever particular sport that they have. We see it. It has such a huge impact. I mean, everyone sees football and basketball and everything, but it has a huge impact on the Olympic sports as well.
I mean, listen, to put it in the words that I surprisingly hadn't heard yet, or if Drew said it, I missed it, facilities. That's what it is, right? I mean, and listen, I'm not here to say that football facilities are in a bad place, but compared to some of their Big 12 counterparts, they may very well be found wanting in certain places.
There's room for improvement, I guess.
Correct. Well stated. I would see that and raise competitive coaching salary. Listen, Gus ain't going to be here forever. He's at a particular age. I think he'll be here longer than people first thought. At least that's the read I make. Like, for Gus, I think this is the perfect cushy job. He's having all the fun coaching and with the reduced stress of not having to deal with an SEC press corps. I mean, goodness gracious, man. Now, we'll see what happens once they're Big 12 and any of that changes. I and Bryson and Drew will keep you up with how that goes. But long of the short is, it's great for Gus. Whoever's next, commanding that next salary and the salaries of future coaches, I think is a huge part of that. Over and above, I mentioned facilities and that. I'm not sure what other machinations may take place as far as, involving some of the stuff that you mentioned. But to put it this way, to have the same high level of production that you get from the media relations team, to keep the, rotating uniform action going the way that the fans like it in a world where we have a impacted supply line, whatever worldwide event reasons you want to bring up this week. I don't want to get into politics, but that's part of it.
Well, it's always been supply chain because of overseas suppliers and manufacturers. That's always been the case.
That's what happens when you sign with Nike and they're doing
like
things.
That's not political. That's just the fact.
That's logistical. I agree with you there too, but I'm talking about over and above political events happening throughout the world. Wars and all that. But I say all of the above to say, at some point, being what. It's the proverb of you have the money to buy the mansion, but now you have to be able to afford air conditioning that big space every month. And
you got to afford the power bill. You got to afford the
exactly.
The water bill, all that. Yeah.
And while that'll be covered a lot in the significant revenue increase from the conference shares, and like Drew said, only a half member so far, that's still something that's a factor as well. But also what comes with it is all the spoils of being a member of a bigger conference. And listen, I think Bryson, Eric, if he were here, and Drew can all speak to the sports that need facilities upgrades more than football overall as well. And I could probably even make the argument for the basketball facility as well. But Drew, help me out with that.
Well, I made a very brief comment about the capital plan. Didn't use the F word, but while they didn't really highlight it, there was talks of upgrading the soccer facility, doing some stuff with basketball and whatnot. But
track is also and tennis have also kind of been like
they don't
really ether a little bit.
They don't really talk much about it, but there's underlining improvements lined up as part of that huge capital campaign. But there's one other thing that we need to remember. They talk about a record number of charge-on fund donors at 11,804. This is about friend building.
Yes.
This is about creating relationships. This is a long-term play. Yeah, you may get $25 out of them now, but this is about creating relationships, because now they're gonna be talking to you. They're gonna be talking to these donors over time and getting a little bit out of them there. And then, now you're doing better in life. Now it's no longer $25, it's $100, and then it's $500, and it's now they're a senior. They put something in there, they bequeath in their will to give money to the school. This is a long-term play. It's like any foundation or nonprofit that you look at building friends over time that you can start tapping into for consistent revenue building.
And then you have that on top of the biggest demographic alumni base with the most disposable income, #data. That stuff definitely adds up quickly, buddy.
And this is a very young alumni base. And it's,
I think that's the part I think that's the part that people sort of forget. And we'll get to you in a second, Bryson, on that. But I
think the average age is about 38.
Yeah.
Look at that. Wow.
Yeah. We are, not Bryson, because he's too young. But
and Kyle's too old.
We're the median donor age, right? Or the median alumni age, I should say. So,
according to Drew, we're above that.
Yeah, actually, that's true. But
Bryson, you can't drink yet. No, I'm kidding.
But that's the part that
21.
But that's the part that I think the Big 12 also saw was like, this is going to be a financial powerhouse over time. The more graduates get bumped out, the more donors you got, the more successful people in business and law, et cetera, right?
The key is you keep those 11,000 people, and then over time that becomes 15,000, and then 20,000, and as more graduate, it's a long-term play. Obviously, you had to start somewhere and develop a culture. McCants has done an outstanding job really developing a system with alumni from both.
Carlos is the man.
It's just fantastic development there. It kind of lumbered along before that, but they're really building something with the shareholder society. They've gotten athletes back involved.
Yeah, let me tell you, it was huge, and we got it. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it was huge for the program and its alumni relations to get Dante Culpepper back, as we saw him this week.
Everybody.
They got the man back.
The guy.
He is the man of UCF football. Say what you want about, some of these newer guys, Blake Bortles, Mackenzie Milton, Shaquem Griffin, but I mean, Dante Culpepper is the original OG of UCF football in the modern era.
He is the oest of G's.
I was about to say, as much as Elo likes bringing up the Rose Bowl, Dante in UCF terms is the granddaddy of them all. Let's be clear.
Well, think about this. Like I love using this comparison because I think it really works. Because when you think of the three greatest quarterbacks in UCF history, Blake Bortles, Mackenzie Milton, and Dante Culpepper, there's three of them. When you look at the times that they're involved, I think about the three Spider-Man actors. Dante Culpepper is Tobey Maguire. You know how many people love Tobey Maguire's
Spideyverse.
Wait. Were you even alive when Dante Culpepper was at UCF?
No, I wasn't. It's a little before. I'm saying it's not perfect.
Great. No, it is perfect. Blake Bortles is totally Andrew Garfield. I'm loving this.
Yes, exactly. So what I mean is that, look, it's a lot more recent, like with people will know Blake Bortles and Shaquem Griffin and Mackenzie Milton and all that. The problem, though, is that they're not really at that donor age yet where you'll be able to get a lot of them. People that have the more donor dollars were kids or students when Dante was the quarterback and when Dante was lighting it up. Bringing him back, I think, can help get those donors' attention. It was like, hey, that quarterback that I loved that was at school when I was a kid and I saw light up the NFL is now participating with this team. And by the way, whichever UCF production person posted that video on Twitter where Dante told his story, now people have been saying like, oh yeah, I remember this story. Yeah, I didn't. I never knew that.
First of all, shots fired, damn it. It's
So it's like, and by the way, and what really helped, by the way, is the music choice behind that. That was really cool music under that video. But the story, and especially hearing Dante tell it, because if I remember you right, Jeff, you hadn't heard Dante himself tell that story.
Yeah,
before.
I haven't heard him say. I've heard a lot of people say the same exact. He told the story. That's exactly how I've heard others say it, but to hear Dante say it and tell the story from his perspective, it just hit a lot different. And that was big. And I think a lot of the old hats, not just older fans who remember him, but also the actual football alumni.
You know, Jeff, what they didn't say on the camera, but I heard that it was said, he walked in, he goes, I'm something of a football player myself.
Seriously. No, seriously.
I hope the hell that's true.
I was hoping that he would have like somebody would have put up a copy of Madden 02,
right?
The
Madden on the cover of Madden.
Bro, Jeff, you joke about that, but you walk in with this age demographic of players doing that. Oh man, they'll you remember what the Ewoks did to C-3PO in Jedi? I'm just saying.
Hey,
how many guys in this room? How many guys in this room had their self on the cover of Madden? This guy right here did, right? If you're Dante Culpepper, jeez.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's it's encouraging to see. I covered Clemson for 2 years when I was up in Georgia. We were about 35 miles away from Clemson. This was before Clemson got good at stuff. And, I heard the story of of IPTE. I pay 10 a year. How that, how that came to be and how that is ingrained and part of the culture of Clemson athletics is its connection to its fans through IPTE. And that you start out just $10 a year. That's all it takes. And if we have enough people giving at least that much, and it used to be people back in the day would donate $10 a year in the equivalent of something, because it started during the Depression. And people would do things like donate $10 worth of apples if they were an apple farmer in South Carolina every year. It's whatever you can give, we are thankful for, right? And it became this cultural phenomenon. And I hope that the Charge On Fund can sort of become that, especially if they reach out to younger alumni to kind of get younger alumni in, right? People Bryson's age, be like, hey, if it's not much, but every little bit helps.
Well, look
if
at the
get
day
everyone in this room to donate $10, $20 a year, wow. You know,
look at the day of giving them. They had very low, they were aiming very low on basically, hey, even $15, $10, every little bit helps. But I mean, you have special campaigns like that. People feed off that. And once your name is in the database, they've created a relationship.
Yep.
And they can come back to that.
That's the thing that's important.
I actually end up, like me, for instance, I end up giving twice on Day of Giving to two different organizations on campus. One being athletics. Just because,
the other one was the Marching Knights, wasn't it?
It was the Marching Knights.
That's what I thought.
No shame there. Kyle and I are longtime vets of the MKs, and we love our organization. But the thing is, but those kind of the Day of Giving and stuff like that opens an opportunity to be able to do that and connect a little bit. And some people won't do it because they get a free gift out of it. Some people do it because they just like doing it. And you know what? You do it because you can do it. It's all about remembering the opportunity to do so. And that's what the day really does. It's kind of a reminder.
Yeah. And believing in, and believing in something that you were a part of. And so, and that's, I think, going to be key moving forward. Now, as far as, go ahead, Bryson.
Plus one day, because I talk about how, because I'll mention, because if Dante Culpepper is Tobey Maguire, you got to remember that the alumni that we have now, Blake, Mackenzie, and everyone like that, they're going to become nostalgic eventually as well. And that just builds even more, because sure, it can be Dante. That is the player that people will know from like 20 years ago, but eventually 20 years ago is going to be Blake Bortles, Mackenzie Milton, Shaquem Griffin, Adrian Killen. So it's just about kind of exponential, or the increase, where there's more and more and more eventually to where we're on the level where we want to be.
Bryson, I like that point too, because here's one that'll tickle Jeff's fancy. The Citrus Bowl where Alabama played Michigan here, I ran into a certain former 49er, former Giant, the Earth of the Earth, Wind, and Fire that I know Jeff is so fond of as a Giants fan, Brandon Jacobs, at the Alabama game. Got to shake his hand a bit. And as alumni go, he may be, quote, one of the lesser known, air quote, among them. If UCF gets to that point where they can have players like that who have made NFL impact, Asante Samuel appearing on the field and people asking him directly why the hell he isn't in the Hall of Fame yet. Hashtag I said it. That's the level I think you're talking about, Bryson. And of course that would be huge.
Yeah. What was Brandon Jacobs doing at the Citrus Bowl?
It was Alabama and Michigan. That's all I can tell you.
Well, he didn't play for either of those schools.
Hey, but you guys still got him showing up. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe he was bored.
Fair point. Because he played briefly at Auburn, but transferred to Southern Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Anyway, enough about Brandon Jacobs. The UCF, we were worried, Drew, and you've expressed many times your concerns about UCF football's upcoming schedule. Well, it looks like it's been filled through 2025, but there are still some holes to fill. So the latest news, Villanova has signed on with UCF to play in 2023. So our first three games for next season are in the bag for our first game, for our first year in the Big 12. Kent State at Boise State, home for Villanova. 2024 non-conference. Remember, UCF plays 9 conference games in the Big 12. So we're going to go from 4 to 3 non-conference games in 2023. 2024, New Hampshire, Sam Houston, and then a game October 5th at Florida. 2025, at Maryland, home for Florida Atlantic, home for North Carolina. Nothing yet in 2026 or 2027. We have one game scheduled in 2028, one in 2030, and one in 2033. So Drew, it's not so bad as it was before. Now, granted, we don't have some, we're not exactly, burning everything down with, the likes of Kent State and Villanova coming to town, but I kind of don't mind that considering that it's our first year in the Big 12, we're going to have an extra conference game. There's going to be a learning curve for sure. Plus, you're playing a road game at Boise anyway, which will be really tough. But what are we looking at right now in terms of where UCF's schedule is shaping up?
Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind. One, the Big 12 requires that you have one Power 5 conference out-of-conference game, and UCF fails to do that in 2023. They're going to have to get a waiver. They're just kind of stuck. The fact that they have 9 conference games actually plays to their advantage. UCF had a major scheduling problem coming into Terry Mohajir's tenure. He's done a pretty good job of patching stuff together. I mean, Kent State and Sam Houston and New Hampshire and Villanova are really the main 4. By
the way, Sam Houston's going to be an FBS school by the time UCF.
Yes,
plays.
they'll be a member of Conference USA starting in 2023. They're actually a really good FCS school.
They've won national titles recently.
Yes, yes, they have. So they're not a pushover program. Now, how they fare once they have to play by FBS rules is a completely different monster. But yes, they will be a Conference USA member as of next year, and they'll. That's why UCF only has one FCS game against New Hampshire. Now, you look at 2025, they have no FCS opponents. I think ideally that's where they want to end up, where they have 3 FBS out-of-conference games. Despite what some fans think, UCF does not need an FCS opponent if they're able to schedule things correctly. It's schedule filler. It's to help your budget. And if you don't need to, do a buy game of some sort or something, then you fill. But you ideally want to have more towards a group of 5 home game and maybe a Power 5 home and home, and then a grab bag of everything in between.
Now, when I look at the schedule, I'm seeing for this first Big 12 year, again, it's 2 home, 1 road. 2024, 2 home, 1 road. 2025, 2 home, 1 road. Now, it's going to alternate every year. You have 5 home conference games, 4 road conference games, and then the following year it flips.
And they're expecting 5 road games next season in 2023.
Okay. So is the plan, at least right now, no matter what we do, those 3 non-conference games, 2 of them got to be at home?
For the most part, you're going to see a Power 5 home and home between 1 and 2 times a year, and then you're always going to see either an FCS or a group of 5 bye game to fill that third spot. But you have to have at least 6 home games to fill your budget. And so if UCF smart, they always do the 2 home, 1 road, and you can balance it. You can make it work. You just have to you have to spread it out. And UCF's already showing signs of being able to do that with the bye game against Kent State and Sam Houston.
Bryson, you had a question?
It's really more of an observation, really, because I think that UCF is actually in a really good position, because you look at the 2025 schedule and you mentioned how, with 3 FBS and that you have the group of 5 home game. I think UCF is actually in a very unique position in regards to that, because we have a spoil of riches of group of 5 schools in state with FAU, FIU, and USF all here.
Well, the problem is they have to be available. And, you mentioned South Florida. South Florida isn't available until 2028. So you have these years that still have to be filled. So while there is a glut of schools between Georgia and Florida that can be lesser expensive buy games, you still have the problem of a lot of those game slots have been filled. This was the problem that Terry Mohajir inherited from Danny White, where the schedule was just so incomplete that it's being patched together, and they're still going to be doing that for the next probably the next year or 2 of fixing that. But once you get towards 27, 28, once you start filling that, then you've kind of caught up with most of the other schools out there, and you won't be having to scramble to put together deals. Because when you look at the out of conference schedule outside of Florida and Maryland. There's really not much there. There's what's left of the North Carolina series, which has been snake bitten, like no one's business as far as being able to actually even get on the field. I mean, almost
as much as the Georgia Tech series. Because remember,
even worse,
the Georgia Tech game this year was scheduled for 2017 originally.
Right. But at least they got one game in 2020. They at least got that one. But in North Carolina, between COVID and storms and everything, just one after another, and it's just completely snake-bitten series. No one's fault. It's just the way it's worked out. So you're looking at 25 as a chance to finally get on the field.
Yeah.
But there's really not much else there.
The observation you've made there, Drew, in the past is part of the reason the national championship is possible via the calling matrix of some of those storm-canceled games.
One storm-canceled game in particular, and that was Georgia Tech. In 2017 is the only reason.
And let's not forget, the other game that was canceled that year was Maine. They granted FCS, but it was early season. But it enabled UCF to play Austin Peay later in the season. Now, Austin Peay was good that year.
Austin Peay was very good. In fact, it was that game against UCF that cost them going to the FCS playoffs.
Yeah.
They would have gone in if they never played that game.
Right.
Much like if UCF
and they dropped and they scored 33. I remember Trey Neal was when he was talking about us, like, it was what told me and Eric one time. He's like, everyone was like, what's the matter with these guys? Why are we giving up 33 points to Austin Peay at home? And he's like, we were completely exhausted because that was that was after the Navy game during that stretch of 10 consecutive games.
And hey, listen, same thing I'll tell you, talking to those 2017 guys consistently towards the end of the year, the last weekly presser of the year, I asked a number of guys from the trenches to the defense, who's the toughest, like the most, the toughest, the grittiest team you've played? And you'd be surprised how consistent the answer was Navy. Most of them.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Doesn't surprise me at all with all that cut blocking that's now illegal.
Right.
It surprised me at the time, but listen, if you're a DB, cut blocking ain't the reason. Like there's so much of it. You've heard, whether it be Traquan Smith or Gabe Davis, them talk about how when they're playing, they're silent. There's no trash talk. There's no exchange. And for wide receivers who we shall say typically have more flamboyant personalities than their trench battling brethren, little jibber jabbers expected, but when it goes stone cold silent, a lot of guys weren't sure how to handle that. You've heard that a number of times on the mic over the past 5 years with UCF players in particular.
Well, I always said, if you want to screw with an opposing team, you don't boo them. You make no noise. You go completely radio silent. And that's going to screw with their head. But you can't get the fans to do that.
Oh, there's no way.
Well, let me ask you guys, and Drew in particular, when we look at the schedule as we wrap this up and get ready to go here. The 2026, what kind of a mix of teams would you like to see? Who would you? Let me ask you this. Okay, in fact, I'll ask each of you guys this question. Let me rephrase. 3 teams, 2 home, 1 away. Who do you want to come here?
Well, I guess I'll go first. Let's start with one of the home games.
Regardless of who's available, by the way.
Yeah, I obviously will have to look at the schedule, but I would love to see, a Georgia State or a Georgia Southern as one of the home games. UCF has a long history with them in the FCS days, and they used to beat up on UCF. And it would be a nice opportunity to kind of return the favor as the Goliath at this point.
I mean, if you want to watch more triple option football, sure, Drew.
Well, Georgia Southern.
They don't run the triple O anymore.
I know.
Paul Johnson's gone.
Last time I saw them in the Cure Bowl, they were running that when they lost to Liberty. Or no, they came back to beat Liberty with Buckshot Calhoun as their quarterback. Right.
But I would love to see Georgia Southern from more of an FCS nostalgia days to kind of play to the old school fans. The second one, you could be a grab bag of basically anyone across the Eastern Seaboard. Maybe to piss off Jeff, to have Liberty make up for that game.
Absolutely not.
had to be rescheduled just to really grind his gears.
Oh, for goodness sake, Drew.
Well, I mean, they're potentially available. There's a game that has to be rescheduled or something.
No thanks.
Watching Sam Congato play. I'm sorry, but continue.
We can watch him play at the grocery store. If I'm correct, that's where he worked before he got signed to Green Bay. At any rate, and then obviously you want a Power 5 in there as required by the conference, and I would love to see something akin of a Texas A&M or someone maybe you're not going to get LSU, but maybe Auburn with the idea of the Gus Bowl going on, maybe be willing to throw a bone.
I would like to see. All right. I want to see first and foremost at least one in-state game.
Thank you.
So give me Florida State. We have not played them.
98, right?
95.
95. That's right. Florida State.
98 was basketball, I think.
I'd love for us to get back on the docket with Florida State, and I'd really like for us to get back on the docket with Miami just to teach their fans a lesson. I would I would like to see you make an interesting point about a G5 opponent. I would love to keep it going with keep bringing either FIU or FAU in as the G5. I don't want to go on the road to them anymore, but I'd like to bring them here. And then I would like us to do some. This is my own personal foible, I confess. I would love for us to get to do like a series, a home and home series with Syracuse. For obvious reasons.
I specifically stayed away from homeristic teams, so I didn't have to hear it from Kyle. But man, you blew it.
Or
on Ball State or Youngtown,
or yeah,
Ball State,
or Rutgers.
Okay.
Wouldn't Rutgers bring a Big Ten team in here? We'd wax them.
I mean,
and I'd love to travel. I'd love to travel up to Piscataway, see my family, and then watch UCF just absolutely.
Well, can you really call them a Big Ten team? I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to call them, to the conference to call them a Big Ten team.
Hey, if we're playing them, yeah, I would love to say, yeah, we absolutely mollywopped a Big Ten team. I'll take it.
Did you just say mollywopped?
I did.
Mollywopped.
Look, I will say that the Syracuse thing sounds interesting. My only worry is for some reason for the record, I play college football pick'em for like the longest time. Whenever Syracuse is at home, for some weird reason, no matter who they play, I always I pick Syracuse as the underdog more often than not because they never cover the spread. The point is that Syracuse is unnaturally good at home, and I don't want to have a Tulsa situation happen.
Dude, according to what, man, they are never good at home. The only home game that they've won in the last 10 years was against Clemson. That's it.
Let me tell you,
they are so bad in the dome. It's not even
blind squirrel finds nut. Details at 11.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, the point is that Syracuse at home just always leaves a bad taste in my mouth that always makes me nervous.
That's because it's Syracuse and it's upper New York and no one cares about that.
So here's the opponents that I would have. So, and I actually did do a quick little search on availability because I just really wanted to. I really would like these to be as feasible as possible. The FIU FAU thing, that is definitely something I want to do. And I actually took a quick look, and take this with a grain of salt because I just did a quick Wikipedia search, and FIU does not have any conference games for 2026 either. So I think that is certainly is like, hey, do you want to form an alliance with me? A type of moment where, hey,
you can't use that word.
Correct.
That's a dirty word.
So that either of which is a really good idea. FAU, I believe, also has some availability in 2026 as well. But I just think FIU because we played FAU like a lot of times. But we also have the relationship with Brian White, so who knows?
Listen, Bryson,
but that's one of them.
We're guaranteed to have a photographer for every game. That's all I'm saying. Continue.
Very true. The other one is the other one I would say is Florida State, because I looked Florida State's schedule, again, grain of salt, Wikipedia. For 2026, they have Alabama on the road, Notre Dame at home, Florida at home, and then they have one more. So if we have a home and home with Florida State, then that would be that Power 5 road game that because I think that's the one that Florida State would be looking for in that year. That would be a big one. And then the other one I would say is the Gus Bowl, because 2026, all Auburn has is a home game with Baylor for that. So I think that's a dream schedule for me. You have that in-state Florida matchup, then you get your Florida State matchup again, and then you get the Gus Bowl, as long as Gus, is still coaching in that time optimistically. I obviously, he's I was talking
when already retiring Gus, man. He just got here.
I don't know. Look, it's 2026. A lot can happen between now and 2026. I think that the point is, I think that I would now, hopefully, if they can get that deal, then maybe that'll motivate Gus to coach for that long until he can do that game, maybe. But the point is that I think that Gus is going to be here longer than Frost or Heupel, and that's what I want to see. Gus needs to be here longer than Josh or than Heupel or Frost, and then if there's an heir apparent with Travis Williams, at least that way we're set up for the foreseeable future. Is my point. But anyway, my three are Auburn, FAU, FIU, and then Florida State.
First things first, if we're talking about 2026, it's very possible by then that A, he's both stayed here longer than Heupel or Frost, and B, he retires, or his contract is up when Saban retires and he takes over at Alabama. I'm joking. Here's the thing.
Don't you dare put that out into the universe. Oh, my God.
It already happened.
Hey, listen, don't hate the player, hate the game. Here's the thing. I like the in-state thing. I think it's all great. Why are we wasting our time with the waste of space that is the Atlantic Coast Conference and their ever decrepit and depleting teams? Don't waste my time with the Knowles or the Canes. That's adorable. Keep it with the Gators. We have it off the ground. They're fresh to get revenge off the Gasparilla Bowl. They either get it or they get beat back. But what you have is the statings of an actual credible in-state rival, not that school in West Florida. A, B, if you want G5 that bad, fellas, in recent history, what team has not been, or has been rather, a bigger factor in UCF's recent success than Memphis? Why not keep them in the fold and, hey, garner that relationship, continue that relationship with what could be a soon-to-be Big 12 school, depending on what happens with the realignment. And lastly, gentlemen, I don't know why we
are throwing all kinds of pasta.
What about Troy, not a state university?
That's 2G of a 5. Anyways, here's my whole thing. I believe that anything you can do to stay with what used to be the best college football that money could buy in the SEC before everybody was, air quotes, allowed to do it. You're going with the wrong orange, Jeff. The fans would lose their ish bringing Tennessee to town and crushing Heupel.
I know. Yes.
You had me in everything except Memphis, because the hope is by then Memphis is a conference mate.
Hey, listen, the reason why I say that, Drew, is because realignment is what it is. It may not happen. That may, that's in jeopardy. If that's the case, though, I'll meet you there and trade it out for SMU. I like a former American team being on that schedule as a G5 over any ACC contribution.
I just want to wish it to happen. If we all wish together, we can make it happen.
Hey, and I'm right there with you, partner.
I know you and I are both big fans of the Memphis Tigers.
Like, I agree with you, Kyle, about the ACC thing. The problem, though, is that you should not consider the fact that Clemson and Florida State are as programs just better off than all the other ACC.
Well, I mean, if you want to be truly technical, Florida State's more of an ass program, but that's neither here nor there.
First of all, what has Clemson done since Trevor Lawrence has left? They got beat out by Pitt, for Christ's sake. Okay.
Well,
don't give up on Clemson just yet.
Yeah, they have more bags of money to give away.
Gentlemen, Pitt is a team that, after beating UCF, printed a T-shirt for the fact that they beat a G5 school. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Well, it's Pitt. I mean, we're
They have
talking
good
about major inferiority.
They have some really
complex.
desperate marketing. I mean, it's
Desperate.
I mean, when you're stuck in Penn State's, when you're stuck in Penn State shadow, yeah, you're gonna think, try to get any form of marketing you can do.
Well, here's the thing. Like, how much is Pitt going to want to do that? If they're playing the backyard brawl with West Virginia.
Oh man, I can't
They're
wait
want
for
to play
that,
another
that
big
game this year.
That game is such a war, man. Oh,
We can play 2 ACC teams.
man.
I mean,
I tell you what. Let's wrap it. Go ahead, Kyle. You have the last word.
I don't hear anybody criticizing the Tennessee call. I'm just saying.
I would
think there's nothing wrong
love
with
to see
Tennessee.
it. Yeah, I would love to see it. I don't know if Hyper and Danny White would go for it.
Premise was regardless of feasibility and availability.
Yeah, and
Well, yeah,
I think
it is regardless of feasibility. But we know it's feasible and we know it could be available. I just don't think they want to do it.
Coward.
I think Kyle and I are both onto something of the SEC instead of the ACC.
Right.
I think that's very important. I don't think I think with Florida already playing 3 games against UCF, I don't think we need to worry about adding them again.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you, I'm looking forward to see it, Pon.
Oh yeah, we'll see that in just a couple years.
Let's get South Carolina back in here. We owe them some payback.
I will say I will be on board with the Pitt thing, if only because it would be absolutely hilarious, because I was literally there this summer. I saw that it'd just be so cosmically funny that I would totally be down for that.
I'm still traumatized from that 2006 game.
That one was rough.
Where the game was over on the opening kickoff.
Yeah. I tell you what, let's do this as we wrap this thing up. If you've got a plan for 3 non-conference opponents, 2 at home, 1 on the road, 2026 and beyond, send it to us on social media. We are at UCF Banneret _SBN. We want to hear your suggestions. Maybe you actually do the homework for us on this one and see which teams might be available for that. You can follow us individually. I am at Jeff _Sharon. Bryson is at It's Bryson Turner. Andrew is at StatBoyDrew, and Kyle is at the SOTG for the student of the game. You can also follow us at facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where Bryson has so graciously posted a metric ton of content from me that you might want to consume here, based on what we saw from earlier today. Don't forget to follow our boy Eric Lopez too, Eric Lopez Elo, on Twitter as well as the Noah Goldberg and _DS Warden. Derek and Noah are 2 photographers who will be hard at work this year for you. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast, please do. We are on Apple and Android. If you already subscribed to us, thank you. We appreciate it. Make sure you send us or rate us and send us a link around to your UCF friends if they don't subscribe to us. It helps us out as always. So, for all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, for Bryson, for Kyle, for Drew, I'm Jeff, saying thank you so much for listening. Football season is almost here. We can almost smell it now, guys. Media Day's behind us, and hopefully we'll be finding out quarterbacks and uniforms and all the other fun stuff. Next week, Tiffany Roberts-Haydak, women's soccer preview. We're going to have our volleyball preview with Todd Dagenev. After that, we're going to have Scott Calabrese for men's soccer. We're off and running now, guys, because the fall is within reach. For all of us here at Black Gold Banneret.